You're watching Faith and Reason, a discussion about God, politics, and pop culture. From the perspective of our pastors, who are not afraid to tackle and ask the hard questions. A Christian talk show for those on a spiritual journey. This is Faith and Reason.
Welcome to Faith and Reason, a program that looks at a variety of topics from a Christian point of view. My name is Pastor Rick Spence, pastor of Fort Lee Gospel Church. With me, as always, Pastor George Crespo, First Baptist Church of Cliffside Park. And we're here to do another program today as we discuss a Morgan Freeman airing a series that is being aired on a National Geographic series called The Story of God. Story of God, at this point, 2 have aired, and there's another 4 to come. But it really raises the topic of pluralism, and that's really our conversation to begin a little bit with the program, and then go into what is pluralism and some of the implications of that. But let's actually start there, just so we have the right language to use. Pastor George, how would you define pluralism as it applies to religions?
Yeah, as it applies to religion, obviously pluralism just means many things. But in religion, it's just that there are basically just many religions, and they all have different points of view. But pretty much pluralism accepts that they're somehow all equal. All religions pretty much stand on the same ground, and you kind of analyze them that way.
Okay. And so in one sense, as a politician, it's probably a good thing. As a theologian, it's probably a bad thing, just to oversimplify.
Although some theologians, being more of a more liberal persuasion, would say, no, it's a good thing too. They would have no problem with it. They would only see themselves as one voice in the midst of many voices.
Okay.
If we take all these metaphors.
Right. Okay. Well, we'll get into that a little bit further. But to begin with, there's an author, Peter Berger. He's written a 2014 book called The Many Altars of Modernity. And so in the book, he talks about the benefits of religious pluralism. So he would be one who advocates that as a positive thing, even though he's a sociologist, not a theologian. He's not. Is that correct?
No, he's not a theologian. But you can tell sometimes when he goes into theology how he simplifies or generalizes. As a sociologist, he's top notch. He's been around for a long time, written many books, great books. His Invitation to Sociology is well known as a classic that has inspired many people to go into sociology. His book on the science of knowledge with Thomas Luckman is a classic, just great reading to see how people. It's actually a much more concrete science than psychology, because it really does deal with humans in a cultural aspect. So you do see them in their natural habitats. It's just not like you're looking at one person. You're looking at a culture. And how certain things happen within that culture. Yep. And for him, of course, this is really a perspective from the American culture of looking at pluralism, what's happening in America. And he sees it as a positive thing.
Okay. And why is it positive to him?
There's a summation in an article here, so I wanted to read it right from the horse's mouth, to say the least. He mentions a few benefits, and just read them off. He says, first benefit, it becomes more difficult to take a religious tradition for granted. Acts of decision become necessary. Obviously, if there are many religions, then you have to know more about yours, or you should be incited to know more about yours and to be definitive about what you believe or don't believe. Right. Second, freedom is a great gift, and pluralism opens up new areas of freedom. Again, of investigation, of tolerance, of working together, all these different things. Third benefit, pluralism is combined with religious freedom. All religious institutions become, in fact, voluntary associations. It means there's no mandate that you have to be part of this group or that group. You have, again, the freedom to choose for yourself. And fourth benefit, pluralism influences individual believers and religious communities to distinguish between the core of their faith and less central elements. Obviously, the more religious things are out there, the more it makes you question what is really vital to my belief system and what is not so vital. Obviously, within Christianity, say, what is the core of Christianity? And so you become not as dogmatic about other things. You might say, well, that's not as essential as this is what combines, this is what unites all Christians here.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, in one sense, he's describing the history of religion in America.
Yes.
It's in a sense, and from that point of view, I agree with it. It's, the greatness of America is that people are free to associate with whatever religion they choose to, and it's not just you're born into this faith, you have to die in that faith. And matter of fact, I think Americans convert from one religion to another almost more than any society in the world.
But in America, it was primarily a Catholic Protestant thing.
Yeah.
And a movement within those two. And, like even the founding fathers, when they wrote the documents, they did not have Islam or Hinduism or Buddhism in mind.
Right.
For them, being religious or knowing the Creator meant Judeo-Christian beliefs.
And mostly Christian. We throw Judeo in there.
And mostly Protestant,
mostly
not even
Protestant.
Catholic. Catholic was not dominant, and
in
it
early
did not
history.
become powerful in the beginning. It was really, because it made sense. Catholicism is dogmatic. Protestantism gave that room for religious liberty, and many of the people that came to America were looking for that kind of freedom to live their own lives and do their own thing and not be enforced either by Catholicism or established Protestantism to follow their ways.
Yeah, but it seems to me that if what he's describing as the benefits of pluralism is really the history of religion, it's what was practiced in our country when we were children here. Well, I was a child in Canada, but you get the point. Similar culture, is that people were not pressured to conform to one religious view. They were free to choose. They were free to associate.
But there was a difference. There really
was respect. And that's my point. Is now things are changing, and it's the same word, pluralism. And I'm not sure if he's addressing the new pluralism in those benefits.
Yeah, he's talking about the new. He's talking about the all these other religions coming into perspective, not simply Christianity.
Yeah.
And again, it is. I mean, no matter how exposed we think we are in America, we weren't for a long time, because I remember the first time I took a job and I was working up towards this area. And I'm from West New York. I was working in this area, and I remember during Christmas when they put the Hanukkah, and I was like, why are they putting that thing next to a Christmas tree?
You didn't understand it.
It really looked, no, honestly, it looked weird to me because I was not used to that. I was only used to the Christmas tree. Okay. This is what I had been raised in, and I had never been raised with seeing something else next to it and trying to honor another thing going on while this is going on. It was a whole new experience for me.
Yeah. By the same token, I grew up in a small town an hour from Vancouver, Canada, and we had the first Sikh temple. We call it, or they say Sikh, but the religion Sikh from India with the turbans. The very first temple of the religion was built in my hometown. Now there's about 5 of them. But at that point, as a child, this is the 60s, I think it was built. So there was a sense of other. There was a sense of not everybody is Christian in this community, and not that we always gave respect to the other religions. That's a different question. I think the old idea of religious freedom. I don't think we used the language of pluralism 40 years ago. It was religious freedom.
That's right.
Freedom for other groups to worship and practice their faith. It was not always as respectful as it needed to be. But I think we come into another idea of pluralism, which means it's almost challenging distinctiveness in a new way, isn't it? And that's a part of it. So let's come back to the story of God. Morgan Freeman. I'm not sure what kind of believer he is. If anything, I've heard he's not a believer or an atheist, but he does this project. He narrates the project of comparing multiple religions. What is your response in light of these apparent benefits of pluralism Peter Berger talks about?
It is, first of all, it is obviously the National Geographic has an agenda. When the guy who did this project was interviewed, he mentioned the animosity that's existing between religions today. Of course, you see, Islam against Christianity, vice versa, all these things happening. And so it's almost kind of looking, already had an agenda to look for a common ground so there could be peace between the religions, and kind of try to show that these radical movements, on any perspective, are fringe movements and not the core of these religions.
Right,
so it already has an agenda.
Right.
The problem that I had with this, of course, multiple problems, but the major problem between that and what Peter Berger says is that people that are watching Morgan Freeman and watching these documentaries are not going to be people who are going to go and read Peter Berger. And they're not going to be people who are going to go out and read the Buddhist scriptures, the Hindu scriptures, the Quran, the Christian scriptures. They're basically going to say, oh yeah, it's just a big melting pot of religion, and you can basically, do like a smorgasbord, pick whatever you like and formulate your own beliefs. But then they're not really going to go, Peter Berger assumes that everyone's a high-tech, intelligent intellectual like he is. Mm-hmm. And there are people who are going to be as decisive about wanting to know truth and search things out as he does. Mm-hmm. And that's unfortunately not the case. Yeah. People just take Morgan Freeman and the documentary at face value and take it as this is really what it is. And really it's not, because it really does present the religions in a very watered-down, wishy-washy type of situation.
Okay. Yeah, so elaborate on that, because to be honest, I haven't viewed them. I know you've seen them so far, the ones that are aired. So what was your first impression of the story of God, Morgan Freeman?
First of all, I was impressed. I was bothered because I guess I was expecting something else. Mm-hmm. The first documentary is about life after death. The second one's apocalyptic. I don't know what the other four are going to be. So but the first thought was, this is not really a story of God. Mm. This is a story of man,
right,
and his search for God. But it's not the story of God.
Right.
I just felt that there was no real viewing of, let's try to understand who this divine being is. It's more like our encounters with him, and is there a life after death? First of all, life after death seemed very egocentric. Mm-hmm. It was more about the continuing of our existence rather than whether there's a divine being or not. And although he entertained many religions, the earliest one he entertained, of course, was the Egyptian belief. Mm-hmm. In the afterlife. But actually the first beliefs that go even further back didn't have a distinctive view of the afterlife. Mm-hmm. They believed in God or gods, but they didn't believe necessarily that they would live on, or the afterlife was kind of seen like a shadowy type thing, mm-hmm. not a concrete, I'm going to do good so that in the next life I'll be blessed. They believe that the blessing comes in this life because you're being faithful to God and his standards, and mm-hmm. but no much talk about the afterlife. So still, but this, now we become more egocentric. It's more about me, mm-hmm. whether I'm a Buddhist or Hindu. Mm-hmm. It's more about me and what I will get out of it. So that was my first impression that bothered me. Secondly was, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you, you must have hit on reincarnation versus
reincarnation was one of them.
Versus a heaven idea, right?
Yeah.
Is that the contrast you set
Well,
up,
reincarnation is one of them, obviously. The whole idea of non-existence, the whole idea of seeking to contain even consciousness, wanting a kind of like a earthly immortality. The last person they interviewed were people that were working with electronic brain things mm-hmm. to, for example, try to capture my essence, my soul, mm-hmm. in this machine, so that when I die, I continue. It's almost like if you saw the movie Transcendence with Johnny Depp. That was the idea. If I can get all of me into his computer, then I continue to exist.
Right.
But there he was actually critical. I was very amazed, because there at the end he says, "But is that computer really me?"
Mm. Okay.
It's not really me.
Yeah,
that which defines me, is that really me, or is it's just a manufactured thing of me? Mm-hmm. And I thought that was the one time where I saw him actually being skeptical. But the other ones he kind of just accepted at point blank. Christianity, whatever mm-hmm. it was, he just accepted things. I don't, actually now thinking about it, I don't recall him really diving into Judaism as much.
Okay.
He kind of took Judaism almost like as a subset of Christianity.
Right,
now that I'm thinking about it.
Right. Interesting. Yeah.
But again, very wishy-washy. Nothing really concrete to show the mm-hmm. distinctive differences between mm-hmm. the religions. Kind of almost like a melting pot.
Yeah. Well, listen, we've been talking about The Story of God, which is the National Geographic series with Morgan Freeman, and just the implications of pluralism and some of the things that means. We're going to continue the conversation, getting more into how that clashes with a Christian worldview in just a moment. But if we're going to go to break right now, and please stay with us, and we'll be right back.
There's no better way to start the week than to come into His presence and dedicate the rest of the week to Him.
I like the children's church downstairs because we learn a lot of new things, and we have a lot of cool teachers.
We believe the church is a place that enables a person to be healthy in life, where we get to know other Christians who share our struggles and have similar concerns that we have.
And then you come together as believers, so that only enhances and pretty much strengthens your walk with the Lord. Like, you need to fellowship with other believers because that's how you grow.
You could do anything here because it's just free and you can learn about God.
You can't do it on your own, and you can't say, oh, I'm just going to read the Bible and I'm going to stay home. Like, you need to be in fellowship.
There's an older clip of the church I'm the pastor of, and Pastor George Crespo is First Baptist. Why don't you give us a little connection, a little story of how people can find you and what you're about?
Well, we're First Baptist Church, 777 Anderson Avenue in Cliffside Park, and our service is Sunday morning at 10 a.m. We have Sunday school, and at 11 a.m. Sunday school is for all ages. At 11 a.m. we have our worship service, and we also have, of course, a nursery and a place for the children as well. And Wednesday night we have our Bible study. We've been studying Paul's letter to the Romans at 7:30 p.m. We invite you to that. And we have a website, firstbaptistcp.org. And we're also on Facebook, actually, which we've been posting a lot of things on Facebook. So you can like us on Facebook and go there and find sermons, Bible studies, and now also Faith and Reason. We're posting them as well, so you'll be able to connect with us in many ways.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah. So the story of God, pluralism, that's our topic today, looking at the Morgan Freeman program, and just a couple more questions about that. How well do you think they presented the religious views of other religions? You mentioned a little bit before, maybe that's the main point, is that they kind of water it down.
Desperately so, unfortunately. Like Christianity, when it began, it talks about this man who's had this near-death experience, and he was drowning, and he saw these fragmented crystals, and the voice was speaking to him, and then told him that it was not his time. Of course, he became a believer in the sense that he's going to a Protestant-type church, but he believed that all ways lead to God, that God is universal, and that all these things happen this way, that there's not one true religion per se. So that's the first guy being interviewed. And now I haven't seen all 6, but I have read about them. And I've heard that the only major Protestant minister interviewed, hold on, is Joel Osteen.
Oh my.
That tells you everything right there. Because Joel Osteen saying that he's Christian is like asking Bernie Sanders about what Republicans believe. I mean, the guy is really so off from the actual evangelical center of what Christians hold. I mean, really, it's not. Come on.
Yeah. No. The only thing.
Joel Osteen is like, like, feel good. I hope you feel better. Here's a pill. No, he wouldn't believe in pills, but basically, it's like everything is about positive thinking. Even when he did an Easter message, he did an Easter message that basically said, Judas betrayed him, and you see something that's negative can still work for the positive. Look what it came out for everybody else. Right. I mean, come on, that's as far as he's come. That's as close as he's come to preaching anything near the gospel of Jesus Christ.
In his defense, he actually pastors the largest church in America, but in agreement to your point is he never went to a Bible college, much less a master's degree program, to study theology. He's certainly doesn't think very deeply about Christian theology, and that's
he even mentions that he doesn't preach about doctrine. He doesn't mention those issues. But look, if you hear him preach, you notice that he never quotes the Bible extensively. He never really deals with doctrinal issue. And if you read the Bible and look at Joel Osteen, you'll see it's disconnect between what the Bible is saying, what this guy says on Sunday morning. It's just radical. But this is the only guy being interviewed. I mean, you could have you could have gone to John MacArthur, you could have gone Charles, Chuck Swindoll, or someone like that, or Charles Stanley, but they didn't. This is the only one. So obviously they have an agenda to water down Christianity. But even when they spoke about other religions, when they spoke about Hinduism, although they mentioned reincarnation, they didn't talk about, for example, about the caste system and things like that, which are oppressive. So it was not that desire to really understand religions on their own and be honest to them. It was mostly just trying to have an idea and then try to get the religions to harmonize around that idea. Yeah.
So let's get to the core of our response, because as we look at this, if all religions are basically equal, and that's really the claim of the modern pluralism, and if I can even define it this way, pluralism 40 years ago meant that every religion has a right to practice their faith, to convert others to their belief if they choose to, and we have those freedoms in our political system. The modern version of pluralism almost says, if you criticize another religion or look down upon another religion as being wrong and you're right, then all of a sudden you're bigoted and you're not practicing proper pluralism. Pluralism, you have to, give equal voices at the table, and yet that seems to go first against logic, because if I'm going to be a Buddhist, I better believe it's true and believe it's right. And certainly for me as a Christian minister, I believe Christianity is true and right. At the same time, I respect the rights of other religious organizations. So what are the consequences if all religions are equal, if all religions are to be given the same footing? How do we respond to that?
Well, there's a number, and I'll dialogue with you on them. The first one that I thought about was the fact of conversion. There should technically be no conversion. I remember when I was studying at Union Theological Seminary, which is extremely liberal, and there were people there. There was a young man I remember who was raised Presbyterian. He had accepted Christ, gone through the whole rituals of being a Presbyterian, and then he became a Buddhist. My question to him was, if all religions are the same, why did you convert? You should have stayed a Presbyterian because that's where you were raised in. By going somewhere else, you're kind of giving a credence that one is better or preferable in some sort of way. If they're all on the same playing field, then if you're Catholic, you should stay Catholic. If you're Buddhist, you should stay Buddhist. If you're Hindu, you should stay Hindu. And that's the first thing that I thought was kind of iffy. There really is no room for conversion, because once you convert, you're like you're saying there's something about that one.
But then how would you respond to the person who says, well, I can pick and choose. I like reincarnation, but I like Jesus, and I like the moral code of Islam, so I'll put them all together. But then again, the question is, where do you worship, or how do you worship?
What are you?
What are you? I mean, I think that's the modern practice for many people.
Because this guy did become a Buddhist. He was a practicing Buddhist.
Right.
It wasn't like he kept his Christian form. He didn't go through Christian rituals. He went through Buddhist rituals.
But he was in a Christian seminary.
Yes. But still, didn't matter because the Christian seminary. That's a very loose term for the seminary that I went to. But again, it was not that kind of seminary that would have been dogmatic,
right.
or would have thought that Christianity is exclusively right. So, but yeah, I think anybody who wants to do that smorgasbord, they can do that if they want to. But again, why? I mean, it just then becomes more like your feelings or your desires, but you're pulling things now out of religions, which is even going further than simply holding to one or to the other. You're kind of making your own religion, which again sounds very American.
It's very American.
Because I hear people who say that they're Catholics, but they believe in reincarnation. They were Napoleon at one time, and I was like, wow. Let's see what the Pope says about that.
How come everyone was Napoleon?
Yeah. You start saying how many Napoleons?
How many million Napoleons are there alive?
Nobody says I was just a commoner in England, a beggar. Everybody's a king or queen somewhere. How many Julius Caesars? How many Jesus do we have running around?
Right.
But this is their mindset. This is what But you end up believing the greatest nonsense in all this.
Right.
But that's the first problem I see, that if all of them are equal, then you should just go and practice the one you're in, and there should be no reason for you to have to go somewhere else. You should be able to find within yours same things you would find in the other one.
Right.
Because they're all the same.
Right. That's a philosophical, lack of logic.
The second problem I see, that then there's no room really for evangelism. No one should be trying to convert anybody else. The Hindu shouldn't try to tell me that I should be a Hindu. He shouldn't be promoting in any way his religion and speaking to me about those things. He just should accept that I'm a Christian.
Well, but people believe that.
Which Hinduism is closer to that, because Hinduism would actually be the pretty ideal in many ways, American religion. I remember one time I was talking to a man who he had a store, and I would have lunch there every time, and I was talking to him, and he was Hindu, and I kept trying to talk to him about Jesus, but he was never offended.
No.
Never bothered. I was like,
Yeah.
And just one time I finally asked him, and he just thought, he said, well, no, that Jesus was a reincarnation of Krishna.
Yeah.
He had no problem with it because he just saw all these great men that have existed as manifestations of his God.
That's true until you get to core beliefs.
Yeah.
Because they can add all the religions under the umbrella of Hinduism. They just pull in their ideas. They don't have a problem. But if you challenge them to give up a core Hindu tenet, like reincarnation, then they have a problem.
Yeah. But how do you evangelize?
Right, and on that point, and listen, if American freedoms mean anything, it includes the opportunity to evangelize others, to share our faith. And it's good to stop on that point for just 1 minute because we do have a lot of people who have embraced that idea that we should never try to evangelize anyone else. And yes, sometimes, evangelism methods have not always been done in the greatest integrity, and there have been mistakes made. But yet, a part of our freedom is to say, if it's like saying, my faith has given me the best thing about my life, and if you tell me I can't tell someone else that I'm being selfish, and so if my faith is what grounds me, is what gives me joy, which gives me pleasure, it comes out of my faith. Why wouldn't I be free to tell someone else about it? And to add to it, the Great Commission says, go and make disciples of all nations.
But again, in a culture says that there's no truth,
yeah,
and your truth is your truth, mine is my truth.
Yeah.
Again, it makes it very difficult to say, why should we evangelize?
Yeah. We have 2 minutes left, so another point.
The best point is, of course, that you have to just rewrite the Bible. You have to rewrite the story of Jesus. Jesus makes it very clear, I am the way, the truth, the life. No one comes to the Father but by me. You can't get more exclusive than that. You have to kind of change Jesus to say, I am a way, a truth, and a life, which I'm sure there'll be even as I speak, I'm sure there's someone working on translation now says that. Hey, that's a great idea. But you would have to rewrite I don't know about any other religion, but you would have to rewrite the Christian scriptures. You would have to get rid of Jesus because he doesn't leave that option open.
Right. And of course, the whole story of the Gospels is that God initiated faith with man. First of all, Abraham and the Jewish religion. Out of Judaism comes Jesus, a Jew, who is the Messiah for the Jewish people, born 100% God, 100% man. That idea of the divine nature of Jesus Christ, fully God, fully man, and he dies on the cross, he rises again. That is the core Christian story. And that can't be, it's not the same thing as there was a guy named Jesus who was a good teacher and a bunch of his followers just spread his story of religion to everyone else. And that's the problem with pluralism, is they don't embrace the real story of Christianity, the uniqueness that it implies.
Of course.
30 seconds, last thought.
If you really want to look at religions, if you really want to be honest and be a pluralist, read the scriptures. Read the Hebrew scriptures, the Christian scriptures. I've read the Buddhist scriptures, the Hindu scriptures. I've read the Quran. Read them and at least be honest about what it is you find there.
Yeah. And we advocate Jesus Christ as the best choice.
Well, like I said, I've read them. Jesus is still it.
So have a great day. Good talking to you. Thanks for watching Faith and Reason.
Thank you for watching Faith and Reason. Please join us again next week. We invite you to visit our pastors at one of their churches, Pastor Rick Spence at Fort Lee Gospel Church, or Pastor George Crespo at the First Baptist Church in Cliffside Park. Check out our websites for more information.